Hello, BookTube. Well, we're down here in puppy territory again for another library tour. This is another pile of books on a bottom shelf. They're all mass market paperbacks in a bookcase that I don't think we ever saw, because I think the last time I did a library tour from start to finish, this bookcase wasn't in its current location and didn't have any of its current books on it, which is again, kind of an illustration of the futility of me doing library tours at all. Speak of the devil, there she is. She has one of her chew toys. I'm amazed that she's deigning to use one of her chew toys instead of grabbing something I don't want her to chew. The floor is covered in chew toys that are made for her to chew on. Instead, she goes for shoes, she goes for gloves, she goes for hats. Yeah, I'm talking about you. We had a momentous occasion yesterday. The last of her baby teeth fell out. She now has a mouthful of very firm, very beautiful adult teeth. And I have been trying to tell her that means that the time of being coddled is over. That if I put down food for you and you walk away from it, I'm going to take it back up rather than leave it on the floor. And also that the delicious canned dog food, which leads to messy you-know-what, should now be replaced with much healthier dry dog food, which we discontinued because it was hurting her little baby teeth. But I imagine those debates will be ongoing. I know. All right, so we're going to go through the books and hope for minimal puppy interruptions. You probably hope for maximal puppy interruptions, but anyway. So the first one... The first one is something we've seen in this little library tour before. I guess this is where they all live currently in my collection. This is the great Gordon Merrick, a gay author before there were gay authors, writing about healthy, societally accepted gay relationships before they existed. I don't know how he had a career. I don't know what happened. I don't know what sustained his sales figures. If there's a study of Gordon Merrick that's been done that tries in any way to explain the phenomenon of him, then I've missed it. I would love to read it. But this is the one that did it for him. This is the one that rocketed his sales and enormously garnered him a readership. It's a book called The Lord Won't Mind. And as you can see, it's about two college undergraduates. So their names are Charlie and Peter. They meet at Princeton. And they're both young, and they both wear sweaters draped over their shoulders, and they're both handsome. And they have an aunt who's the in loco parentis figure for both of them, and she is wacky and zany, which at a certain time, a generation ago, was also code for accepting of gay behavior, not a censorious aunt, not a Boston aunt. And they meet. And Charlie they're both kind of bland. They're just ordinary undergraduate boys, written from the perspective of someone who'd never been one, in a typical sense himself, and knew none of them. So they're kind of bland characters. Charlie has one attribute that's extremely healthy, even Guinness Book of World Records healthy, in short order, in the course of the book, in less than 10 pages, they both discover that Peter has the same attribute, and it's in the same record-breaking territory. And as far as I can tell, in this book, and I think there were two other Charlie and Peter books, that is the only basis for their relationship. They get along like a house on fire. We follow them through young adulthood and even into middle age in New York, in a world of theater and publishing that doesn't exist anymore. So the books are fascinating in their own right. But they don't seem to have anything in common personally other than... Anyway. Oh, God. Then the next one, we've also seen these before. These, I just haven't been able to get rid of them. I like them too much. I go back to them. And they're the old Viking Portable library editions. I like the paperbacks because they have the inset photo over the inset picture of the author over a photo. I like the design of the paperbacks better than I do the dust-jacketed hardcovers or the big trades that Viking did for a while. This is the Viking Portable Melville. You see what I mean? That's what I'm talking about. We saw a couple of these before, and no doubt they're coming up. I have them in, yeah, here we go. The Portable Victorian reader is the same way. A picture inset on a photo. Although I have Viking Portables that just have a drawing, the ugly version before this. I just like them. I think the editor that they had of the whole series, the oversight of it, managed to assemble some really memorable volumes. Anthologies can be memorable works on their own for their insight, for the synchronicity of their pairings. And these do, almost all. I don't know of any of them that aren't successful. And some of them are bizarre. John Bailey's Viking Portable Leo Tolstoy is bizarre. If you sit and think for a minute, okay, I have been given a writ by Viking Press to do a portable Tolstoy. What would I do? I guarantee you the first 6 decisions that come to your mind came to Bailey's mind and he dismissed them. So his Tolstoy anthology is one of the strangest Tolstoy anthologies ever done. This is much more conventional. This is by J. Leda. And it's much more conventional. It has excerpts from the longer works. It has a lot of the shorter works, has some letters, a generous selection of letters. And I love it. I absolutely love it. So I can't bear to get rid of it, even though there's an increasingly large part of me that, not in the Charlie and Peter sense, kindly get your mind out of the gutter book too. There's a increasingly large part of me that just thinks I'm never going to pick up a mass market paperback like this and read it again. And then what do we have? Oh, we have some classics. Okay, we have a mass market classic of Huck Finn. The only reason that I got this and the only reason I keep it is because it has the Big River cover. It has the theatrical release poster of the Big River, the musical that I love so much. I love parts of it so much. A lot of the songs are junk, but a lot of them aren't. A lot of them are wonderful. I saw it a million times on Broadway, back when you could do that without taking out a second mortgage on your house. And when Bantam reissued Huck Finn with that cover, I grabbed it, and that's the only reason I keep it, literally, for its cover. Then the next one is, this is an old series of mass market paperbacks. I loved it. It was once upon a time where I actually collected them. But they're really, really cheaply made. That was the whole point of them. So if you find one, it's almost certainly going to be falling apart. And they almost certainly can't be read, even if they aren't falling apart. But I love them. They have original commissioned cover artwork. There's the Magnum Easy Eye editions. I don't know what they're called in your country. They had a wide distribution with a number of various changes in the Magnum Easy Eye or the icon or whatnot. The covers almost always stay the same. And this is Tom Sawyer. And I just love it. I look at that cover, Mark Twain and Tom Sawyer. I have many other editions of Tom Sawyer, but I keep this one, and I might even read it. I don't know. I can't rule out reading mass market paperbacks. But like for instance, I have the Magnum Easy Eye of Tom Sawyer. I have the great Magnum Easy Eye of Dracula that has this big spooky close up of Boris Karloff on the cover. Anyway, our next one is also a classic. It's Steinbeck's East of Eden. Those of you who are following Nathan James's read along, East of Eden, he's reading all of Steinbeck. I keep the mass market paperback of this one because they gave the main character James Dean's face. They just drew it that way, but also originally commissioned artwork, which I love, and which genre fiction mass market never does anymore. The science fiction and fantasy, mystery, yes, but it used to be that this was also done. And the really sad thing is that publishers have decided that the mass market reprints of the canonical works of literature are for school, and that there isn't any readership for them in the general public. And that's why there's no money to commission a cover like this, or any of the other covers that we've seen in this thing, because you wouldn't get that money back. You break even if you reprint a classic, but if you put money into it, you want it back. I think that's a shame, and I think it might be true. And I also think it should be true, if you follow that without whiplash, because all of the classics of the Western canon are available at Project Gutenberg for free. And people say, oh, I just can't reconcile myself to reading a book on my phone or on my iPad. And I never know what to say to those people. Their motives are good, but they are fibbing. I always want to say to them, okay, you say you can't read a classic on your phone. But if I had a little, they're coming in the future, a little pinball-sized drone that was just a camera with wings on it, and that could follow you in the course of a given day, 24 hours, how much time would I see you reading on your phone? it would be a large amount of time. Large enough for you to get 2 or 3 chapters done of all these canonical novels you keep meaning to get around to reading and don't, while you tell yourself you don't like to read on your phone. I always wanted to do that. I won't ever, because any reading is good reading. But if you can go on your phone to Project Gutenberg, type in Tom Sawyer, get a perfectly clean, curated text. The texts at Project Gutenberg are cleaned up. They're not like the common domain stuff on, for instance, Amazon, where you had a grad student was just given $7 an hour to back a van up to a local library and scan things through a scanner. So you'll get pages upside down, you'll get pages scanned blurrily and nobody cares and nobody notices. You'll get the undergraduate's hand, you'll get the bottom of a soft drink. All the stuff at Project Gutenberg has been cleaned up and curated for their site. Their Tom Sawyer is easy to read, and it's all formatted for your phone or your screen, whatever. And it's so I understand what publishers are doing, because why on earth would you pour money into a mass market reprint of Tom Sawyer? I'm amazed that anybody does it even for trade paperback, considering that no matter what you say, we all spend an enormous amount of time looking at lit screens, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm reading Trollope right now on my phone. It's a perfectly congenial way to read. She's been so good all day. She's such a wonderful dog. Oh, she's a handful, because she's still a puppy, and we cannot travel. We cannot go for 10-mile walks in this weather. So I keep telling her, if you're this good with virtually no exercise, imagine how good you're going to be when we can go on 5-mile walks every single day. But anyway, enough wool gathering. Let's go back to the books. Okay. The next one is a classic, a slightly more modern classic. This is The Code of the Woosters by P.G. Wodehouse, the greatest of his Jeeves and Wooster novels, and that is a J.C. Leyendecker cover, which just it was an advertisement for Arrow collars, but it just happens to be a perfect illustration of Jeeves and Wooster. I have often wished that dramatizers of Jeeves and Wooster would adhere to an idea closer to this than the one in, for instance, the immortal Fry and Laurie version for the BBC. Now, I'm not casting any shade, as the kids say, on those. The Jeeves and Wooster for the BBC are gorgeous. They are brilliantly done. But it's impossible not to notice in that series that in the series, Jeeves and Wooster are about the same age. And I've always thought that the Jeeves and Wooster novels make a lot more sense if you remember that Bertie is probably very young, that Jeeves is probably much older than he is. So I like that picture. I like any kind of insinuation along those lines. I've often thought that Bertie Wooster should be immediate post-college age. So, and that Jeeves, obviously, I mean, he's been a gentleman's gentleman for a long time, so obviously he would be much older. I'm hoping that I'm hoping actually that we don't get any other casting of Jeeves and Wooster. The Fry and Laurie version is so perfect that I wouldn't want anybody to change it any more than I want anyone to update Rumpole away from Leo McKern. But if it's going to happen, I would like it if the age difference were there. And I can't really say that it shouldn't happen, because I loved the Jeremy Brett Sherlock Holmes for the BBC. I loved it with a passion. I still think Jeremy Brett is the best interpretation of the character. But I wouldn't have missed Sherlock for all the mud in Egypt. What a wonderful show. And in its own way, staggeringly faithful to the original. So, I'm not discounting any future inventiveness. It's just... Anyway, next one is an oldie. I don't know if this whole series that this guy did would ever be reprinted, but they are a treasure trove of wonderful fun if you're in the Boston area. This is Old Landmarks and Historic Personages of Boston by Samuel Adams Drake. And it's one of these. It's got spot illustrations all throughout, and it's just the lore and history of Boston from the very beginning to I think this goes to the late 18th century, and it's just I know all the stories by heart, and I knew a lot of them by heart before I read these books. He did a whole bunch, not just Boston. I kept the one on Boston. I don't think I kept any of the others. But as far as lore goes, they're a treat to read. What have we got here? The whole stack fell down. Spine down. That's why I don't know what I'm grabbing for next. Okay, very good. We just talked about this. This is a Viking Portable library again, but this is with the previous ugly covers. This is the Viking Portable Renaissance Reader. I don't know if you can tell, but not only is it ugly, but it's poorly done. It's poorly cut. It's at a slight angle because it just went into the printer wrong. And I mean, look at that. That is totally unattractive. You would need to be interested to do this. And the only reason the publisher could get away with designing something like this is because A, they wanted to keep the price down, and B, they knew there would be people on the train platform taking, the train from West Egg into New York for the day. These were on the metal racks at bookstores. They knew there would be adults wearing hats, carrying briefcases, who would buy this because they were interested in it, and not care about the cover. And this is wonderful. This collection is just wonderful, full of letters, full of rare bits and pieces that don't usually occur in ordinary Renaissance anthologies. That's what I love about the portables, is the little Viking portables, is that you can't tell ahead of time what's in them. The editor in this case is James Bruce Ross and Mary Martin McLaughlin. Mary McLaughlin is there's a video on its own right there for her. But and she would have hated what I just said. Now that I think about it, she would have hated what I just said when I said that commuters from West Egg to New York would find me wearing hats and carrying briefcases, would find these and find them interesting. She'd have said, "Oh, really? Well, I never wore a hat or carried a briefcase, and I think the bulk of these sales were to housewives, so, like me. Are you calling me a second-class intellect?" Of course, I wouldn't do that unless I were ready to check out. So she would. I should keep her voice in my head. She would have been right on me, like ham on eggs, if I'd said something like that. I should amend. The Viking Portables these were done at a time when the idea of an improving book was still a reality. When people actually thought about books that way, some books that way, and when the post-war generation wanted to know more. I know that for any of you who were born in the 21st century, all of this is seemingly like science fiction, improving books, adults who want to know more. But nevertheless, once upon a time, publishers sold to those adults. And if she would have been right, probably the bulk of the buying audience, probably the thing at the base of the sales figures for these things, were women and not men. I'm just a monster. That's all. That's what do we got here? Let's go on. Oh, great. Okay. This is Basile Davenport. This was the most famous Viking Portable in the mall and the bestseller that they ever did. This is the Viking Portable Roman Reader by Basile Davenport, illustrated by Basile Davenport. And I don't know what we've got on the cover there. I have no idea. He has some sort of an architect's scroll. He has Superman's cape on. He seems to be leaning on a shield, and this looks kind of like part of a legionary's dress uniform that he would do in a parade. But then he's got Jor-El's tunic on, like he's about to go to the Kryptonian Science Council and say, "I tell you, Krypton shall explode." And let's not even talk about the hair. So I don't know what's going on here. Oh, they just got somebody's nephew to knock together a picture, just the same thing as this guy. But this is wonderful. Davenport is so good as an editor. This is the most conventional of the Viking Portable editions. This is the one that has, if you think about, okay, I have 600 pages to do Ancient Rome, what would I put in? This will align closely to the things that will come first to your mind. He intentionally did it that way. He could easily have made something weird that was entirely full of Maximianus and nobody else. So he could have done a John Bailey, and he didn't. And this sold like crazy. People wanted to know, hey, the literature of Ancient Rome, it's been a long time since college. I want to be well-read. I want to be cultured, but I don't know where to start. I don't know what's good and what's not, and I don't have all the time in the world. All of that was behind the thinking, or the marketing drive to make these things, was that there was a segment of the audience out there who thought that way and would buy a book if it came from a reputable source. And the whole line did well as a result. And they also helped themselves by having a lot of contemporary figures in. The Viking Portable Falconer sold like hotcakes, just like hotcakes. Makes me wish there were more, and it also makes me wish that I had them all, even though I'm not in love with mass market paperbacks anymore. And I also think that there is a corresponding portion of the audience like that today. If something, Viking Penguin is one of the most major publishing houses in the world. They have established a level of trust with their audience. I firmly believe that if somebody, a publisher, or even in this case a booktube channel, the Western Canon videos that I've made got more response from the rest of you than almost anything that I've ever done. Because by the time I started doing them, I had established a level of trust with you that you might not always agree with me, thank God. We disagree with each other all the time. But you at least knew that I knew what I was talking about. And therefore, if you were looking for a relatively convenient starting point for an otherwise big and ungovernable mass of literature, well, then you would want to listen to a video by somebody like me saying, okay, if we're talking about ancient Rome, here is a 30-minute video on the literature of ancient Rome. And I firmly believe that if Viking or somebody else were to do something like this again, it would also be popular. Maybe not. Maybe the reading public has changed in ways that... certainly the commuter reading public is now just abysmally dumb. They're entirely lawyers and business people. So the commuter reading public that you get going through an airport, they don't want to think on their flight from Bilkin clients in America to Bilkin clients in Europe and then back. They don't want to think. They want to release. They want to relax during that time. So the small fraction of them that don't play games on their phone that whole time certainly don't want, a handbook on the literature of the Byzantines. Anyway, this you'll be happy to know this wandering digression fest is almost over. This is the last book for this stack for now, and this is a novel that I've mentioned before. It's Gary Jennings' Journeyer. This one's been beaten all to heck and gone. And they came out in a big flimsy trade paperback of this years and years and years ago. I never even bothered to buy it because you could tell right away that it was just 2 dots of cheap glue holding the bunch of pages to the spine. You could tell right away that was true, and that therefore you'd get 100 pages in and the whole thing would pop apart. So this mass market is at least better made than that, so I just reinforced it with paper. Until I find a hardcover. Except that the hardcover of Journeyer doesn't have this great 70s cover. Look at the original artwork cover. You have the requisite half-naked woman. You have Marco Polo at the court in front of the gold Buddha. And the art wraps all the way around. You have camels leading through the desert. Look at that. Look at that. It's just beautiful. And they don't make mass market paperbacks like this anymore. So I just hold on to this one. And this is, for those of you who haven't searched through my 2,000 videos, this is a gigantic historical novel about Marco Polo. And it's amazing. Just amazingly good. The best thing that Gary Jennings ever did. And full of set-piece scenes that are just amazing. Just incredible. It'll make you think about what Marco Polo actually went through. What traveling all the way to the other side of the world was like in his day. What it would have meant mentally and emotionally. There's a fantastic scene where he teaches the Mongols how to use the strategic use of gunpowder in a warfare situation. There's a fantastic scene where he comes back home after forever and is, in every functional definition of the term, a complete alien to the world where he was born. And there's also a harrowing, long scene in which, thanks to hallucinogenics, he experiences childbirth. If you're a man and you read that scene, which I'm sure is only underselling things, your admiration for what women go through to make sure that you're here will just go through the roof. You'll read that scene. If you're a man, you'll read that scene tense the whole time and saying, well, I'm glad I don't have to do that. But I highly, highly recommend this book if you can find it. If you see it at like a paperback fair or whatever, just a cheap ratty paperback like this. And again, you see lots and lots of books like this, and you see this one. I'm hoping that this video will cause this one to stand out in your mind, because it's amazingly good. And that's it. That's our library tour for now. This was a particularly Grandpa Simpson stem winding thing. We'll move on. We'll move on next time to the next pile. Looks like we have plenty of piles left here, so we'll have plenty to talk about. And I'm going to get out of puppy territory and see what she's doing. Because as you notice, we haven't seen her in the last minute. And when you don't see her, she's destroying an 18th century family heirloom of yours. Not anything else, just that. So I'm going to go find her. I'm going to tell myself while I'm looking for her that when I find her this time, I'm finally going to scold her. And then when I see her, I'm not going to do it. When she looks at me with that face first. Anyway, I'll see you soon, Book 2. Thank you.